Hello and welcome to Menopause, a conversation we all need. Just a little bit of housekeeping. If you can turn off your phone, if you've got a pen to take notes, that's great. And stay right to the end because we have a beautiful offer for you. So let's get into it because we don't have a lot of time. And it's a funny thing with Zoom, sometimes it's hard to get going on it, but we've just gone past that first slide. So before we go any further, let me introduce myself. My name is Jenna Moore. I am a certified menopause weight loss and lifestyle science coach. And I put on 20 kilograms and felt like I lost my mind when I stumbled into Peri. And I don't say that lightly. And it's why I do this work now because it's been a real roller coaster of a ride. And that was back in the days when it was still very much swept under the carpet, which has changed a lot now, which is a happy day for most of us. So what I did then, because I could not get any answers, was I went back to the study books, and my purpose is now to support and educate other women so they don't have the same experience I did. I also work with MenoMe, who is bringing you this masterclass, and we are dedicated to supporting women from pre-menopause right through to post-menopause because they all come with their own little set of uh, requirement for some intelligence and know-how would be the best way to put it. So we do that with education, with natural evidence-based solutions, and as I say, education. And as I mentioned before, we do have a gift for you if you would like to stay to the end. So let's just talk about the menopause basics or meno basics. Menopause is the end of fertility. Not every woman is going to experience pregnancy in her lifetime, but certainly if she lives long enough, she will experience menopause. And there's around they're saying at the moment, who knows, but around 1.1 billion women on the planet going through some stage of menopause at the moment, which is probably why there's a lot of talk about it because we are different generations. We just won't stand for things being swept under the carpet, and we are in a time of information. So there are four stages of menopause. There's before, as I said, pre-menopause, because we don't throw out that window because it's a time when we're getting our periods. We're very fertile if infertility is not a problem for us and we don't have any symptoms. But this is actually when the first shifts can occur around your mid-30s, and that's a drop in progesterone, which I'll explain a little bit later. Then there's or perimenopause. Now, this can last on average, and you will hear lots of numbers bandied around, but these are pretty good guidelines that I'm giving you here. So it can last around 4 years to over a decade. And that can start around 35 to 45, average around 40, early to mid 40s. Then menopause itself is really just a moment in time, and that is when you reach your last period, but you will only know that in hindsight when you have gone 12 months with zero bleeding. And the average age for this to occur is around 51 or 52. And then there is post-menopause, so you've been through that, but life doesn't go back to like it was before, where our bodies have changed physiologically. It is a wonderful time, though. It's when most symptoms ease, and a lot of women say they feel more confident and happier in their skin. However, it does increase I don't want to say risk, but um, more of a predisposition to increased risk, well, I am saying risk, of heart disease, hypertension, osteoporosis, dementia, a lot of things like this. And also this one study, which is a very well-known study on women's health, it also identifies early and late stages of peri and post-menopause. And from what I've seen and what I've experienced myself too, this does happen There's early perimenopause, late perimenopause, early postmenopause, and late postmenopause. So as I mentioned before, progesterone drops around your mid-30s, and then that goes in a linear fashion, whereas estrogen then starts changing a little bit later, but it doesn't go in that just drop line like progesterone does. It tends to go in what we call a roller coaster, so it can go high and low, which can be behind a number of the signs and symptoms. And so the ratios, there are other hormones at play here. These are the major players. And their ratios go out of kilter to what they were in premenopause. And just to let you know, estrogen is actually a plural. There's a family of estrogens. We are talking about estradiol here, which is the most dominant form of estrogen during our reproductive years. And this is the one that is reducing and lessening and leaving an ovarian building. We also have estriol, which is the most prevalent estrogen when we are pregnant, and estrone, which is a weaker form of estrogen, and it tends to come into play more post-menopause. So I've just created this, you could take a screenshot of this graph here. I thought it might be helpful for you to see visually what is happening in these different stages. So that there is no reliable test for perimenopause, which is amazing, isn't it? But it's because of those fluctuations. You know, we talked about progesterone dropping and then the estrogen not going in a linear fashion, but fluctuating. There are some other things at play here too, called follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. So they can change from day to day or even hour to hour during perimenopause, which is why blood tests are not considered reliable. However, recent research done in 2025 actually by a neuroscientist, Dr. Lisa Mosconi, found that the estrogen, because we have estrogen receptors all over our brains, so the estrogen levels in our brains could 100% show what stage we're at. So perhaps there is potential for a brain test in the future. However, blood tests can be great because they can rule out other things and are really important for baselines. But all the menopause societies do say that what's important here is how you are feeling, and you know your own body best. And as someone who has been on this journey, we can notice things are changing, but we can't quite put our finger on it. So if we have this awareness of what we're going to experience, or what we could experience, I should say, then we can rule out some other things. Sometimes signs and symptoms can cross over with things like autoimmune disease and some other things. But this is something that can come into play when we are wondering perhaps why something is changing. So perimenopause, or menopause actually, is often called the second puberty, because if you remember going into puberty, that was quite a gradual and sometimes disruptive process. I know it was for me. And so the same thing is happening at this other end, or at this bookend of puberty or fertility. And it's the reduction in your reproductive hormones as you come to the end of fertility, which is why I said those sex hormones, estrogen or estradiol and progesterone, are the major players. But we do hear a lot about them, and also testosterone, but it's also a lot to do with your HPA-GT axis, which is your hypothalamus and pituitary gland in the brain, your adrenals, which are small little glands that sit on top of your kidneys, and they do a lot of work, but they release cortisol, which is our survival hormone, but also quite famous for being our stress hormone. But it's also a wonderful hormone because it wakes us up in the morning and gets us motivated. Then there is gonads, which for us means ovaries. Obviously for men, that's the the testes, and the thyroid axis. The thyroid plays a major role here, and we will talk about that a little bit more as well. But it is this very gradual, multi-layered biological process. It's not something that happens overnight, which is, if I ever thought about it before, thought would be something that happened when I was old. My periods would stop and that would be it. But no. So peri can be challenging, confusing, and overwhelming. And these statistics come from the Menopause Society, and they show that 20% of women sail through and wonder what all the fuss is about. 60% of women, signs and symptoms are moderate for them. And then there are the 20%, and I fell into this category, for whom they are severe. So that is 80% of women who have some form of disruption in their life from menopause. The menopause itself is only a moment in time, as I alluded to before. And I found this study very interesting. It was conducted in the United States called the Bona Fide State of Menopause. And that found that 59% of women at age 40 to 49 don't know what perimenopause is until they start to experience it. And certainly I was one of those, but I also speak to women quite often in my work who are there as well. So that same study showed that 71% of women are unprepared for the disruption of symptoms. That might be you. It certainly was me as well. What I love that the study has found is that women believe in self-education. So if that is you, if you are here, that is probably you, and you're very smart to self-educate. And those numbers are going up. And there were 79% of women in 2023 who were self-educating, and that went up to 81% last year. So this year it will go up again, I'm sure. So a little bit about HRT or MHT, hormone replacement therapy, but its correct term these days is menopause hormone therapy, because it's not really replacement unless you have had primary ovarian insufficiency, which has gone into menopause very, very early. It's more just a therapy helping and aiding your hormones as you go through this transition. And it is getting a whole lot of airplay, but it has to be said, it is not a magic pill. Hormone therapy is great for many women, but it's not for every woman. Some women can't take it, some women don't want to take it, and some women don't do well on it. But it's very much a conversation to have with your medical professional, with the caveat there, with a medical professional who is knowledgeable about hormone therapy and about menopause. Because menopause at the time of recording this is not part of the medical curriculum. Hopefully that is changing, and certainly there are a lot more specialist doctors now who have taken a special interest and therefore special training in menopause. So let's go through some of the signs and symptoms, because it's not all about hot flushes. And most of these signs occur in peri, not all, some of them come in post. And we're not going to go through this list, and we'll go through it fairly quickly. I can't go into it in detail because of time, but this isn't to scaremonger, it's because knowledge is power. If you know that something could be attributable to the hormonal shifts you're experiencing, then that's a bonus, isn't it? Instead of thinking like you're going mad, as a lot of women have done, I certainly did, or calling the ambulance. So we have estrogen receptors all over our bodies, as I mentioned before, and this is including in the brain, in the gut, in the vagina, in our skin. They are just everywhere. So this is why we can get both physical and psychological signs and symptoms. So this is a mental health aspect of signs and symptoms, which is really under-recognized, I feel, and it it needs more of a window. And this can include things like anxiety, even if you've never experienced it before, panic attacks. And it's also important to recognize that if you've had depression, it can come back magnified, any sort of clinical depression. There's a wonderful Professor Jayashri Kulkarni at Monash University in Melbourne, who is a global voice in the link between women's hormones and mental health. And she says it's important to understand that perimenopause depression is very different from other depressions and it must be treated as such. If you want to know more about that, do get in touch with me or visit the podcast Women on Fire, which I host, and it's sponsored by MenoMe. And there's an interview with the professor on there. So it's not just about sex hormones, as I said before, it's to do with your brain, it's to do with your gut, it's to do with your cortisol, which is that stress hormone. It's to do with your insulin or blood sugar and your thyroid. Now, your thyroid loves progesterone, so as the progesterone drops, you could develop a thyroid condition, and many women entering midlife do develop underactive thyroid. So it's really important to get a full panel thyroid test because this can link to fatigue, it can link to hair loss, it can link to many signs and symptoms that can cross over with menopause. So let's go through. There are the infamous hot flushes. This can be to do with the thermoregulatory master hormone in your brain, the hypothalamus. But also your thyroid can have a lot to do with your temperature regulation as well. So hot flushes, night sweats, irregular periods, and change in regularity or flow, fatigue and tiredness, like really heavy fatigue, not just tiredness, headaches and migraines, which can be driven by the estradiol. The good news is they do tend to improve post-menopause. Thinning hair and hair loss or excessive hair shedding, vaginal dryness. As I mentioned before, we have estrogen receptors in our vag as well. Weight gain, joint and muscle aches, which is a real biggie because that estradiol is like a lubricant. I often call it our juice. Bloating, which can be to do with digestive issues, the drop in progesterone, and also your lymphatic system, because as we're going through and going later into postmenopause, both our lymphatic system and our blood vessels can tighten up. Itchy skin, really common, really annoying, and that can be an itchy vagina as well. Sore breasts, which tends to be in peri when your estradiol is on that upswing. Incontinence, both stress and urge, which can be, you will know stress from when you cough or you sneeze and you might have a leak. Urge is you might just be putting your key in the lock or in the car and all of a sudden you just have to pee and it's not taking any prisoners. Very uncomfortable. More and more recurrent UTIs or urinary tract infections, digestive changes. One supplement that can be good, has been recommended for UTIs, is D-mannose, just for your information there. Then there are other emotional symptoms, as I mentioned before, anxiety, depression, irritability, mood swings, which can be tears, joy, and rage. Rage can be very disconcerting for a lot of women. Insomnia, trouble staying asleep, loss of libido, feelings of dread, and brain fog. Not fun. Then there are things like electric shock sensations, like it feels like you've got an electric shock on your skin. Tingling extremities, like your hands or your feet may feel numb or tingly. Dizziness, very common one. Formication, which can feel like crawling bugs under your skin. Burning mouth syndrome, so a feeling like burning in your mouth or a metallic taste in your mouth. Burning feet. Tinnitus, ringing in the ear. Facial hair. body odor changes, and that goes for urine odor changes as well. Weakened fingernails, oral changes, including bleeding gums and broken teeth, smelly pee, as I said before, overactive bladder. And then going back to the psychological symptoms, introversion, all of a sudden you may not want to attend gatherings. Suicide ideation, this is very, very common, and we'll talk about that in a little bit as well, but it's critical and should be addressed immediately. Vaginal atrophy or prolapse, progressive, and that can feel like your vagina is falling out of your body. Osteoporosis, which is a weakening of the bones. Allergies, new allergies, or an increase in allergies, and this can be to do with the change in your histamine reaction. So, as I say, this is not to scaremonger, and a lot of these I'm sharing with you because there are a lot of specialists out there now who can help with many of these things. But it's important to know, and this is where lifestyle science comes in, that all of those signs and symptoms can be magnified by things like poor diet, nutritional deficiencies, things like vitamin D, your vitamin Bs, your iron, vitamin C, zinc, magnesium, all of these things that we really do need and we tend to impact. Sleep issues and chronic stress, those are first and foremost things to get a handle on, especially if you are struggling with weight gain around the abdomen as well. Toxins, so these can be environmental, plastic, from your personal care or your cleaning products. I'll talk to you a little bit more about them. Exercise, no, exercise of course is wonderful, but the wrong type, intensity and duration for your body at this time, or the changes that you've gone for. Like there is such a thing as too strenuous or too much exercise at this time. Poor liver, adrenal and thyroid function, really key, really key. That liver is so important, and keeping those adrenals happy and healthy and minimizing stress and thyroid, which I've spoken about before. Quick tip there, you add a couple of Brazil nuts to your daily, 2 or 3 Brazil nuts to your daily food regime, that will really, your thyroid will love that. Then gut issues, which actually circles back to nutritional deficiencies. Our digestive system does change during menopause. We have a total webinar on explaining that. If you'd like the link, just reach out to me. But the thing is, if you are having gut issues, if your gut is not in a happy place, you will not be able to absorb nutrients as well, which circles back to nutritional deficiencies. And then insulin resistance, again, I don't have time to go into it because it's quite complex, but it is to do with your blood sugar. Every time we eat, our blood sugar rises, pancreas releases insulin. Insulin's job is to escort the fuel from our food to the cells to be used for energy. Insulin resistance, and we do become naturally more insulin resistant at midlife and at the menopause stage of life as we age. And so therefore the cells will say no and not let the insulin in. That's insulin resistance in a nutshell. So then it will get stored as fat around the abdomen. That's a very, very simplistic explanation. There's a lot more to it than that, but a diet high in refined carbohydrates and sugars and processed foods will increase insulin resistance as well. So basically your genes pull the trigger. You know, a lot of it goes back to epigenetics and our DNA and our ancestry too, really, but lifestyle can pull the trigger and exacerbate what we may be predisposed to as well. So many women are affected by these symptoms, and the sad thing is that some leave their relationships, careers, That's the loss of confidence, which I keep meaning to add to that list. It's a biggie, a loss of confidence, and women often leave their work because of it, or they consider suicide. And the highest, and these statistics come from Australia because we don't have any in New Zealand, but it stands pretty much around the world. The highest suicide rate for women is in the 45 to 54 age bracket there, which is right in here. And it's really understandable if you have struggled a lot with, especially some of the emotional signs and symptoms. So, baby steps, and we cannot change everything in a masterclass. But if you take a look at how you manage stress, that's super important, and also sleep. We are meant to be in survival mode sometimes, but not all the time. So if we were chased by a tiger, you might have heard this analogy in the past. The adrenals would release cortisol, which shut down our digestion and our fertility to give us the energy to be able to run for our lives. Now, in modern time, we don't differentiate, well, our bodies don't differentiate between being chased by a tiger or being road rage. So we just become more predisposed to higher stress level and higher cortisol as well during menopause. So we need to bring some factors into play to help minimize our stress as much as we can, and which leads into our sleep as well. It's really important that we are rested and that we are in a good space. Those are first and foremost your highest priorities if you're struggling with signs and symptoms. And also, and I have to put in there a plus, or weight gain, because I hear from you all the time about how weight gain, especially about around the abdomen, is really upsetting you. And this can be why. This can help with it. And then look at your food and lifestyle. Triggers for many of these things include refined sugars, alcohol, and caffeine, and processed foods, UPFs, ultra processed foods. Our bodies just cannot deal with them anymore. There was a study that came out just recently that showed that our body can cope with it or reverse all the damage we're doing to it. The changes begin to happen in that decade, 36 to 46, and then 46, forget it. No, they didn't say that, but that's what I'm saying. So it's right there in that perimenopause thing is the time when our body is going through so much change, but it also cannot cope with a lot of what our modern lifestyle throws at it. And then there are the toxins, which are in our personal care and our cleaning products and our food and in our environment. And these are things called xenoestrogens, or endocrine disrupting chemicals. And they can mimic our estrogens. And our skin is a big mouth, so it can take them all in and mimic the work of the estrogens that we don't want. We do not want this. And our liver is one of our largest organs, and one of its job is to detoxify hormones that we do not want, like these excess estrogens. And if it's loaded down with the sugar and the alcohol and the caffeine and the processed foods, it can't do that. So those toxins get recirculated, which can exacerbate signs and symptoms. It mucks with our gut health, and it's just not a great thing. In fact, they are being looked at in some research as with their links to cancer as well. So where I'm coming from as a menopause and weight loss coach and the lifestyle science practitioner is it takes baby steps. If you relate to any of these, if you're struggling with these signs and symptoms, there are things that lifestyle science can do for you. But the best thing is not to try and change everything overnight. If you're doing some of what we've mentioned, then that's great. Maybe add a couple of things from this list if you're not doing them already, or choose a couple and try and bring them into your life for 3 weeks, and then if you like it and if it works for you, go back and choose some more. So these are just quickly going through them. Eat more, not less. If you're trying to control your weight, it can often be because you're under eating. So you want unprocessed whole foods with lean protein, good fat. Extra virgin olive oil is your best friend here. Complex carbohydrates like whole grains and fiber. Most of us do not eat enough fiber. We get them from fresh fruit and vegetables and whole grain. This will also help your digestive health and help with any constipation or pooping issues, which can be a real problem, and also bloating. So if you want to know more about that, do get in touch as well. Hydration. Our natural hydration levels or natural moisturizing factors decrease with age and menopause. So get plenty of pure unfiltered water. And yes, herbal tea counts. Get sunlight and move your body. First thing is great, that first daylight, hitting your eyes without sunglasses on. It's on the photons at the back of your eye, so it stimulates adenosine, which is a hormone that can help you stay asleep all night. But it's also, in my experience, great for your mood as well. Support your liver and gut health. I just quickly went through the liver before and how the gut health changes. These two things are absolutely crucial to having a great or improved menopause. Better weight, better signs and symptoms, better mood, better everything. If you want to know more there, also I will share with you a little bit what we have. Breathwork, as I said, cortisol or stress. We need to knock it on the head as much as we possibly can. And if you're going into a situation where you're feeling stressed, to do this really simple technique works with vagus nerve and will help calm you down pretty much instantly. I find it magic. So what you do is you breathe. You can do it and no one will notice. You can empty out your lungs out of oxygen. Breathe in slowly for 4, hold for 7, and release for 8, and then rinse and repeat until you feel yourself calm. Vitamin H, which stands for vitamin humor. So many of our community, I think studies show that humor helps women go through this perimenopause and post-menopause, or eases this journey if it's being a bit of a roller coaster road for us, if we're not in that lucky 20% who don't notice it. And then the most underrated supplement, which is human connection. Community is everything, but sharing with your partner, sharing with your girlfriends, that will just help you know, and it is highly recommended by everyone. So as I said, MenoMe brought you this masterclass, and I work with MenoMe, and we say that menopause is our one and only game. So with everything I've covered here with you, we created natural support using evidence-based ingredients, and we've got hands-on support based on lifestyle medicine from me, or based on lifestyle science. So we use scientifically researched ingredients, and the heroes here are saffron, and Mary Perry and Perky Post, which help support you in perimenopause and post-menopause. Levox, which is an incredible kiwi fruit derivative, which is in Happy Go Tummy and supports that changing digestion. And keraGEN-IV, which is a wonderful, wonderful ingestible keratin, and lots, which helps with hair density. So saffron is, I think it's one of the most highly researched, if not the highly researched saffron extracts in the world. It's incredible. And it supports mood, sleep, and emotional balance. It's so calming, I cannot tell you. And Levox, as I said, that's a kiwi fruit derivative, and it supports gut health and microbiome harmony. It has some outstanding data behind it, but one of those things is it helps increase levels of FPREL, bacteria in the gut that is considered the marker of a healthy gut by many people. And then keraGEN-IV, the ingestible keratin, and lots that I talked about. It's amazing for your hair density. There was a time here when my hair, because I've got fine hair anyway, my parting was getting wider, but lots has filled that in. Um, it supports your nails, they get stronger and grow faster almost in that first couple of weeks of use, and then people start commenting on the glow or your radiance of your skin. So Mary Perry and Perimenopause with saffron, as I said, they support you in perimenopause and post-menopause. They help with disrupted sleep, low mood, unexplained shifts in body temperature, and also libido. Also joint pain, I need to bring in here too. And Perimenopause has the addition of vitamin D3 and K2 and resveratrol that help with bone and metabolic health and condition. At their baseline, they both contain the Afron, saffron, fenugreek, and sage. Then we have Happy Go Tummy with Levox. As I said, that's that kiwi fruit derivative. It's amazing. It helps with changes to your digestion, bloating, tension, irritation, constipation, change poop. So it even supports the microbiome in the vagina as well, because that does change. And it improves immune function, mood, and weight as well. We love that. One of my girlfriends actually messaged me that I didn't know was taking it and said to me she felt it had cleaned up her leaky gut overnight. Then there is beautiful lots with keraGEN-IV. So that will help hormonally driven thinning hair and hair loss, which can also be to do with thyroid and iron and vitamin D deficiencies as well. Excessive hair shedding, sensitive scalps, dry, lackluster skin, lines, wrinkles, and sagging, and weak and breaking nails. So don't you love that? It's a beauty product there for you ladies. Then we have the 10-day reset. Now, this is based on some of that lifestyle science I shared with you before. It is designed specifically for women navigating peri and post-menopause. I've designed it. So it's really helpful if you're getting irregular periods, persistent body aches and pains, stubborn weight gain, especially around the belly, hips and thighs, gut woes like bloating, gas and poop problems, fatigue, caffeine or alcohol consumption if you need to get off that bus, headaches or migraines, night sweats, hot flushes, mood swings and brain fog, skin issues like itchiness and eczema, low sex drive and fluid retention or tender breasts. And what you can expect after the 10 days, because 10 days is a very short time, so it's only designed to show you the full steps, but you can expect to experience a flatter tummy, better energy, better sleep, mental clarity, happiness, great skin, and to not cravings on the head. And then last but definitely not least, we have Meno coaching, which is 30 to 60 minutes of coaching with me. I have studied this for over 10 years. I know the physiology. I know what's going on. But better than that, I've got lived experience, and I fell into that 20% of severe. So I know how confusing it can be. And I can absolutely tell you that what can help as well. And when I say their lifestyle medicine, I'm not talking about medicine because I'm not a doctor. I'm talking about lifestyle science. So I hope that has been helpful. As I said to you, we had a lot to get through in this time. So we do have a gift for you, and that is 25% off site-wide. Now that includes bundle subscriptions and other brands because they're either already discounted or we don't control the pricing with the other brands. So if you use the code MENO25, you will get that 25% off. If you have any questions, there's our website there, which we always have, or email me directly on jenna@menome.com, and I am always happy to answer your questions. I absolutely welcome them, actually. So thank you so much for spending this time. As I say, I hope you've got a lot out of it, and please do not hesitate if you have any questions. I look forward to speaking with you.